Okay, so hopefully this is a screen. I'm going to be making some sun tea, which is basically just tea made without cooking. And put it out in the sun for that part. And it's mostly an herbal with some Lapsang. So all you need for it is a jar and the herbs, which I'll introduce as I bring them over. And usually you'd want something to measure with. I'm not going to bother because I'm just kind of throwing something in together. This first herb is daimana. It's a leaf. It's good for calming the nerves. It can be used as an aphrodisiac, specifically or especially for women, I guess. It's a diuretic, helps with the kidneys, circulation, blood sugar, and it's an antioxidant. Just about everything I'm going to show here is an antioxidant, though. It has kind of a flowery, slightly bitter taste. Some people say it tastes kind of like cannabis. And I'm going to just put a little bit more than that. There. Just about half of what I had. But I'm not measuring out much for any particular reason. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I've got a general idea of what I want. And if I remember right, I should have enough to use all in halves. This next thing is hibiscus. That's probably something a lot of you have heard about recently. It's been become kind of popular because it's good for satisfying flavors and stuff. Lowers blood pressure. It's got vitamin C. Helps with weight loss. Has been shown to fight some cancers. Kind of has a cranberry-like taste, but again, it's particularly good for satiating thirst. A couple of fun facts about that. It's the favorite flower of Kali in India, because the red flowers are supposed to represent her ferocity and be shaped like her tongue. The ancient Egyptians thought that it made women promiscuous, and so it was forbidden for them to imbibe. And in East Asia, it's used as shoe polish. So, kind of runs the full gamut. I kind of want more hibiscus in there. Oh, Damiana is a native to the Americas, by the way. It's very important. It was very important in the Aztec and Mayan cultures. It's still important in Mexico, actually. They banned the export of it. And for some reason it's also illegal to grow in Louisiana, though I'm not sure why that is. Next up I've got raspberry leaf, and most people are going to be familiar with raspberries. The leaf is very light in comparison to some of the other leaves that we'll see, and it's just leaves and stems of that plant. It's not going to taste like raspberry, though. It's relatively bland. Raspberry leaf is good for PMS, menopause, fertility. If you're drinking it while you're pregnant, it will help with morning sickness and lessen labor pains, the pains from contractions, and generally makes labor last less time. It's also good for improving milk production. That's not why I've got it, though. It's an antioxidant, but it's good for digestion. Um, fun fact, raspberries are actually part of the rose family. Um, and they come in 4 different colors usually: gold, purple, and black, and then the red that most people associate it with. Following that up, we've got some clove. Clove is extremely pungent, very strong, so I'm not going to use as much of it. Cloves are called the nail herb because each clove does look sort of like a nail. They're good. Cloves are good for a lot. They're great for digestion. They're an antibacterial. They're an anti-carcinogen. They apparently imitate insulin in certain ways, so they're good for diabetics. I'm only going to add like that much. That's going to be pretty pungent right there, even going in with everything else, because again, this is very potent stuff. That's an immune booster, helps with bone density, so like osteoporosis and stuff like that, which might mean it'll see its use in space. Spice must flow, right? It's an aphrodisiac. Actually, most of the stuff that I've got in here is aphrodisiac, to one extent or another. Also, not why I was using it, but it has a tendency to be that way. Clove is pungent, strong, and kind of sweet with an astringent taste. And it's also kind of got a warm flavoring. Some people will sense it as being hot. Not like spicy hot, but like overheated, I guess is the best way of putting it. Clove's been really valuable historically. It's an Asian spice that's been bartered around a lot. It was the cause of a lot of wars, trying to control the trade and production of it. And in the place where it was originally grown, people would plant a clove tree when a baby was born to get it to grow up with them, as a means of getting, help me out here, a prosperous life for the child. But yeah, it also has to be by the ocean. It has to be able to see the sea is the way that it's said, but I'm not sure exactly why. Probably something to do with the salt content of the water. Next up, we've got slippery elm. This is another American plant. Now, this is the bark from the slippery elm tree, and it's been used for a lot of stuff. It was very popular in Native American medicine. It's been used as a gruel in times where food was scarce. It's good for sore throats, helps with respiration, can settle your stomach, fix some heartburn. It's another antioxidant. It's not good to use when you're pregnant, and it complicates medications. It promotes menstruation, though, which is part of why it's not good for pregnancy, because it'll stimulate the menstruation when you don't want it, which can harm the baby. But yeah, it's bland. It's kind of got an oatmeal flavor to it. Next up, I have rose hips, which are the fruit from a rose. These have been dried and ground up to be fairly fine, but they are fairly aromatic when they're in the tea. They're good for joint pain, blood pressure, help with cholesterol a little bit, migraine. They're a good source of vitamin C, and they're a light laxative and diuretic, which it shouldn't interrupt any plans you have, but it should help you keep regular if you have a problem with that. They're the taste is a little bit sour, kind of a tart. Think like green apples or young plums, with kind of a hint of what rose smells like as taste. Or if you actually have eaten rose petals, some people will eat them in salad, for example. Roses have been a big thing for a very long time. They're one of the national symbols of America. They're a long-standing national symbol of England. The Romans and Egyptians were obsessed with roses. They've been used as a symbol for love and sorrow for a very long time. The Romans had an expression, keeping a thing under the roses, to mean keeping it a secret, and that expression is still used to a lesser extent nowadays. Now, the last thing I've got is the actual tea leaf. If we were doing a pure herbal, we wouldn't need it, but what's the point if there's not any actual tea? Now, what I've got here is Lapsang Souchong. It's a black tea, so the leaves have been aged a bit. It's got less caffeine than coffee, so it works pretty well to help if you're trying to step down from coffee, if you like strong flavor. This helps with increasing your blood flow, reducing cholesterol. It's kind of got a calming effect, despite the caffeine, or because of it. And it can help with weight loss and fight some infection. Again, antioxidant. It's kind of got a smoky flavor and aroma, because it's been smoked over pine, and you can kind of smell that. Some people attribute it also to like peated whiskeys. To me, the leaf and the tea that it will make smells halfway between whiskey and tobacco. Not like cigarette tobacco, but a good pipe tobacco. And if you don't know the difference, I feel bad for you, because there is a very big difference between a good tobacco and a cigarette tobacco. Actually, if I understand correctly, the tobacco grading system for cigarettes and pipe tobacco are effectively inverted. So what makes good cigarette tobacco makes terrible pipe tobacco, and vice versa. That's actually going to be pretty strong when I add the water, but that'll be perfect. Fun fact about Souchong: it's considered Westerner's tea in China, where it's grown. They don't much care for it in the East. It's too strong a flavor, apparently. They figured out that smoking helped it. For travel, getting it long distances. And another interesting aspect of that is Star Trek. Captain Picard drinks a lot of Earl Grey when, oh my god, I just lost his name. Picard's actor. I feel like I'm going to feel like an idiot looking this up. Patrick Stewart was told that Picard would be drinking a lot of tea. He suggested Lapsang, according to what I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but he suggested Lapsang Souchong. And the directors decided to use Earl Grey instead, thinking that not enough people would know Lapsang, since it's sort of an elitist beverage. So there's my dry mix, and let's see if I can get this off of the thing that it's hanging on. I had it hanging off of that. Take it over, add water, our water comes straight out of a well, goes through like a triple filtration system before it gets to this point. But you might want to add filtered water if you're worried about your local water. I know some people have trouble with theirs. And you just fill it up. As much as you want and or can. And I'm going to go as high as possible. A little bit more, a little bit more. There we go. I want to be able to get the lid on. This is just an old pickle jar. Ironically, I got the pickle jar specifically for this purpose. Let's see if I can... There. Just shake the water up some. And then we take it outside. And this is going to steep for a while. I usually put it over here because in this corner of the porch it will steep quite well on its own. You should be able to actually watch that. I wonder if I can... There's the sheep, by the way, just to show we've been moving them through the pasture where you can see the shorter stuff is where they've been lately. Let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. I don't make tea that often. I feel like I should more often, but it's one of those things, if I'm not careful, I will forget about it. And then it winds up being left out here for a couple of days, at which point it stops being just tea and starts being more of a fermented stuff. which isn't necessarily bad, but it means you have to kind of wait a little longer for it to settle in. I'm just trying to tie this off so that it's absolutely not going to fall, because that would just ruin my day. There. And this battery is supposed to last for a couple of hours. You can already see the tea starting to color. I'm going to shake it a little bit more just to get it mixed some. That I'll have out in the sun for a little while, and you should be able to see all of that changing. Cool. Bye. Looks like the battery's still working. Good. So, you've seen that it's darkened quite a bit over the course of this time. Let's see if I can get this. Oh geez, I tied this on better than I thought. There. The rest of this should come apart easily enough. Good. So as you can see, the tea is now this dark, rich, reddish color. I'm going to just take it in here. There's not really a good place to put the camera now, so I'm gonna have to make one. That shouldn't take too long. I'll just attach it to my headgear here, and that should work okay. Let's see. That. That'll be forward. That'll be forward. Good. You can see that some of the stuff has sunk to the bottom, while some of it is still up top. That's pretty normal. It's sort of the way that works. See if this will hold. Here's the base. There we go. That should hold okay, as long as I pay attention to it. So yeah, the tea is this good reddish color. The leaves have steeped for quite some time. Now that's a goodly rich color. Let's see how it's turned out. See if I can sit down a little closer to this. My biggest problem now is going to be just getting it into the cup, which isn't going to be too big a problem. I've got a strainer so I can catch whatever drops in there, just as an idea for people who are wanting to. It's wide enough that it's still going to get drop silt and stuff into it, but I'm not really worried about it all that much anyway. How am I going to do this? That handle's in the way. Well, let's see if I can do this without making a mess. Oh. Screw it. I'm not too worried about what's going into it anyway. Let's get this. Oh wow, the smell is strong. That'll do. Yep, dripped a little bit out this bottom. That's why I'm outside doing this. Put that there. Normally it's probably a good idea to have someone else helping you, but see, I used a strainer, so I caught that stuff and I can put it right back into the pot. Which is because I'll run this through, and I'm actually going to wind up, I usually do 2 washes with the same herbs. First wash, which is the one right now, is substantially stronger than the second wash. Some people prefer the first wash, some people prefer the second, but could use more clove. I was a little more paranoid with it than I needed to be. Though as this steeps a little bit longer, it'll get more of the clove flavor in there. Right now there's a little bit of the warmth from it, but not much else. The Lapsang's a little bit weak too. I put in enough hibiscus that it's kind of overpowering everything else. A little bit. The hibiscus, the rose hip, the Lapsang smoke is coming out in the breath as I'm talking. I can't really taste it until I'm breathing it out. The clove's warmth is there just a little bit. It's good. Yeah, that's about that.